Hello, Frizzle fiends. I have a problem that has plagued me for years. It's a little bit of a silly problem, but don't laugh. Here it is. I'll read a book and love it. I'll give it 5 stars and just be head over heels excited about it all. And then I'll think to myself, I should go read more books by this author. And then here's the problem. I don't go read more by those authors. And here is the reason why. I get scared because I have such high expectations for another book by this author that I've loved before. I'm terrified of reading another book by that author and hating it. So might as well just never read from that author again. And the solution is I pick 3 authors who I have given 5 stars to before and read another one of their books and make myself do it. And you guys, and this video is keeping me accountable to this plan. So I've selected our 3 authors and let me talk you through them a little bit. The first is Allison Saft. The 5-star book I've read from her before is A Far Wilder Magic, a book that I loved for the slow, emotionally complex romance and the interesting discussions of religion and culture intermixed with that all. The next author that I've chosen is Emma Bull. Emma Bull is like my favorite author of all time. She only has 5 books. At this point, I have read all 5 in the last few years, except Territory. I did read Territory like 8 years ago and gave it like 3 stars, but I'm highly suspecting if I reread it now, my tastes have changed enough that I might just give it 5 stars. And this book is really high stakes in my mind, because if I give this last book by Emma Bull 5 stars, I will have given 5 stars to every single one of her books, which is definitely the outcome we're looking for here. And then the last author I've chosen for this video is Martha Wells, author of the Murderbot Diaries series, a series that I love so much. I discovered the Murderbot Diaries series about a year and a half ago. I have read the series 5 times. And I am incredibly apprehensive, especially about reading more Martha Wells books, because none of her other books have really gathered the positive reviews that the Murderbot Diaries books have. The internet seems to think that her other works aren't as awesome as the Murderbot Diaries, and I really hope that that isn't the case for me, that I can find more favorites among her backlist of novels. So I'm going to be reading 1 book from each of these authors during the video, and I'll tell you what these books are about as we go. Now here is the quest I'm going to set myself. I want a total of 12 stars in this video. We have 3 books, and I'll be rating them each out of 5 stars. So if we get 4 stars for each of the books, that'll be 12 stars total. If we get 5 stars for each of the books, that's 15 stars total, and we will have exceeded expectations. But I will be very happy with this video as long as we get 12 total stars. So let's roll. I'm 4 chapters in to Down Comes the Night, and I'm ready to tell you what it's about. There are 2 nations that are always going to war with each other. Right now, they've got a very tentative truce, but it's starting to break down because soldiers from both of the patrolling armies are starting to go missing, and they're both ready to blame each other. In this environment, we have our main character, Ren, who is a healer with magic healing for one of the armies. However, due to insubordination, where she keeps healing the enemy, how dare, she's been kicked out of the army, and her only options now are to heal at a convent, which she hates, or to go get involved in very sticky political situations in another country. And I've got some pros and some cons so far. Pros, I really like the setup of the world building, that the feud between these countries is at least partly fueled by religion. And this is one of the things that I loved in the other book by Allison Saft that I gave 5 stars, is that characters had religions that became motivators in the story. And that's just something that I love in fiction, because I feel like it provides a nice verisimilitude to real life, and just, it's fascinating to me when people are doing things because of their religious beliefs. So in one of the countries, the dominant religion believes that there is like glory in bloodshed, and in the other country, the dominant religion believes if someone does something bad to you, you should do it back to them 3 times worse. So you can see how this creates a cycle of violence between the countries very quickly. One thing that's a little hard in this book is that you really have to pay attention. Like, I'm listening to the audiobook, and if I zone out for 10 seconds and then come back in, I'm lost. Just because the writing style is kind of sparse and doesn't always give you lots of details, and it's kind of skipping around things, which is neither a pro or a con for me. It's just, I have to pay extra attention. One of the things that I'm kind of excited about, kind of thinking, Chloe, you have too high of expectations for this book, is romance. I have no idea if this book has a romance or not, but that's one of the things that I really loved about the other book by Allison Saft, so I'm really hoping that this one has a romance. So every time a new character is introduced, I'm like, is this the love interest? And we have a lot of pretty good candidates so far. Like, we have Una, Ren's commanding officer in the military, and they had a fling in the past, but then called it off due to non-fraternization rules. And I don't think that Una's going to be the love interest, because it feels like that's just like past angst that doesn't feel like it's gonna be revitalized. But also I wouldn't be upset if she was the love interest. But we've also been introduced to various other shady people, like a spy or a politician from another country that's writing her letters, or maybe even the big bad general guy from the other country. Pretty much just every time a character's introduced, I'm trying to figure out how to ship them. I will say, if no one ends up being the love interest, I am gonna be kind of disappointed, but can accept that. One of the other things that I love about this book is that I know it's a standalone. So when a plot thread is introduced, I know that there's going to be payoff by the end of this book. I won't have to wait for books and books and books to figure out what's happening with this big bad general evil guy from the other country. Or at least I hope everything pays off. I have a lot of faith in this book. And there is the crux of this video, that the hype is high and I have high expectations because I've loved this author before. And those expectations make it harder to enjoy a book, not easier. So we'll just hope that it lives up to the expectations. I'm halfway through Down Comes the Night, and it's been great. Talking through my initial thoughts here on camera actually ended up being fairly therapeutic, because after voicing all of my anticipation for a romance, I realized that I was being kind of silly to expect a romance out of this book when I was never promised one, and maybe there wouldn't be one and I should just stop looking for it. And it took me a few chapters, but finally I just stopped looking for a romance. And then like a chapter later, a romance happened! And it's one of those endlessly entertaining romances that starts with the two characters trying to kill each other, and then afterwards our narrator is like, but he's kind of hot though, and from that moment I knew this is gonna be a fun one. And then our protagonist, Ren, and her enemy find a common goal, that they have to work with each other, start bonding, and we all know how this ends, and I'm very excited for it. Now that I'm halfway through the book, I think I would pitch this a little differently. It's less about the wars between these two countries, and more just about Ren is in a creepy house. Maybe it's haunted. Maybe there's a murder mystery. Maybe it's nothing. And a lot of the book is her trying to solve the mysteries of this manor. And the larger political situation isn't irrelevant, but it's not as prominent as I thought it would be in the beginning of the book. One of the things that I'm really loving about this book is Ren's voice, because she is a healer, both magically and in a doctor sense. And so when she's talking about a certain body part, she's using the specific scientific name. And in all of her description, this medical vocabulary is always creeping in. Like, instead of frost growing on a window, frost is calcifying on a window. And I love all of these little details and word choices that make Ren's character that much more fleshed out. Right now, I'm feeling like this book is a 4-star. I'm definitely loving it, but I'm not quite obsessed with it, you know? But we'll see how the ending plays out, because that can really make or break this. So, first impressions of Territory. I'm really liking it so far. Like, the magical western, it's working out. One of the things that I like about this book is that it's playing with this moment in history. And from all of these little historical hints of the introduction and stuff, you know that something violent and shocking is going to go down. But I don't know enough about this time period to actually know what that is, and I've forgotten the plot. So it's just all of these little hints of town rivalries and people reacting to bad things happening already in the town. Even though the book has just started, I'm already getting ready for the dramatic climax of it all. We've also been introduced to our two protagonists, I'm assuming at least, which is Mildred and Jessie. Mildred is a young woman who was widowed about a year ago, and she is just now starting to find her new balance, to find her new life, to entertaining dreams of a career as a writer, to entertaining maybe the flirtations of men. And she just feels so dynamic, and I'm excited to see her get involved in the mess that is Jessie's plotline so far. So Jessie is like wandering horse trainer guy, and he has been summoned by his friend's magic to the town of Tombstone. And he's not too happy about this fact because he seems to not like magic things at all. His main goal right now is just to get out of Tombstone, but he keeps finding reasons to stay, which is also a fascinating dynamic that I'm excited to see explored more. But in the end, it's a book with a lot of fun flavor in it so far, and some interesting character arcs already being set up. I have finished A Far Wilder Magic, and also The Curry. This is actually several days leftovers at this point, but I'm happy to give you my review of both. This is the end of a loaf of bread that I cooked a few days ago. I like the general level of like saltiness and garlicness in this curry, but I think it has too much tomato. So now let's review Down Comes the Night. The ending was solid, but not perfect. The ending had two modes: action suspense and important character moments with themes. And I don't feel like they always meshed super well together. Definitely the stronger side was the ending of the themes. This novel is really tackling the themes of like forgiveness and mercy and the pros and cons of a cultural religious heritage of war. Mostly cons. And the conflict of this book kind of boils down to the villains want to incite a war and our heroes want to prevent it. Even if a war would theoretically punish their enemies for all of the hurt that they've been caused before, and that was really strong. We did also indeed get our happily ever after romance in the end, which, yes, is definitely what I wanted from this book. But I think the action moments of this book struggled with pacing for two main reasons. One was like the micro pacing from phrase to phrase, paragraph to paragraph. This book, sparse in its description, that if I zoned out for like a sentence of the action scene, I was confused for the rest of the action scene, which yes, is somewhat a mistake on my part, but I feel like a well-written action scene has a little bit more redundancy in there. But on more of a macro level, the action scenes often felt mispaced and misplaced because there were so many different threats. There are so many different characters that are sometimes allies and sometimes villains and always swapping back and forth, and it was like I was never sure who I was supposed to be afraid for. It was hard to keep track of what were the threat levels here. Is he just a threat in a political, he might start a war sense, or is he a threat that he might kill us all? Like the stakes of these conflicts and interactions weren't clear. I do think that those enemies coming from all sides suspense definitely added to kind of the gothic feel. This isn't like 100% gothic of a book, but there is a creepy mansion. In the end, I rated Down Comes the Night 4 stars. And I would very happily read from this author again. It's all very exciting, and I'm glad we got off on this good foot here. And I'm honestly a little nervous that not everything's gonna turn out as well as this one. It's dinner time, and I have chosen cereal. I also have two updates for you. The first is that I am halfway through Territory and loving it. Alas, I feel like I'm loving it like 4 stars and not 5 stars. I so dearly want to be able to give this book 5 stars, because that'll mean I'll have given 5 stars to everything by this author. A fun punchline, right? And also I always want my reads to be 5 stars. My heart says this book feels like 4 stars right now. And I'm so hoping so hard that the ending is spectacular and makes everything better. The plot lines have certainly developed in a fun way. Our character Jessie has officially decided to actually pursue magic. Our character of Mildred has officially decided to start courting Jessie, and also really gained confidence with her skills as a writer for the Reporter and for making up tall tales for a magazine. In Jessie's mind, when he's thinking about Mildred, he's like, this girl is the best girl I've ever known. She's smart and witty and brave and kind, and he's just head over heels. But he keeps not finding times to ask her out, because every time they meet, it's like, oh look, a dead body. Oh look, he's naked. And Mildred is certainly open to Jessie's advances. So I'm hoping that they get to save the day together and that springboards them into a long-term relationship. There's actually a third narrator that I forgot to even mention last update because he's just that forgettable, and it is Doc Holliday, a local dentist that is friends with the Arp family. I don't know how to pronounce their name. But this is a family that kind of runs the sheriff's office in town and is very into the justice, and they're really corrupt and have been doing some really shady things and covering up some of their acts. And Doc Holliday is in the position where he's got all the details of their nefarious acts. But the reason that I'm not really loving his storyline is it's not going any. Like, he's just moping around town. But what is interesting about the criminals is that definitely some of them are evil sorcerers. And that is really what's propelling Jessie's story right now. Because he's starting to discover and investigate this black magic, and that is what is really motivating him to finally accepting that he has magic inside of him and he needs to learn how to use this, because it looks like there's gonna be a showdown of magic and he needs to be prepared. So right now, I'm feeling 4 stars, and the ending could really make or break it, and I really hope it makes it a 5 star. We'll see. Meanwhile, I have just started The Element of Fire by Martha Wells, and I'm ready to tell you what it's about. We follow a character of Thomas, who is a guard working for the royal family. And some members of the royal family really like him and give him interesting espionage tasks. And some members of the royal family really hate him and give him, like, suicide missions in order to get rid of him. There's also some plotline with like a foreign actors troupe, but I don't know where that's going yet. The setting of this reminds me a lot of like the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, but it's got that old-timey feel of the time when people are still using swords and they're just starting to really use pistols. It's a flintlock fantasy kind of setting. And it's also got the feel of there's definitely magical people about and strong magic happening, and even people are like name-dropping fae that might be out there somewhere. But our main character isn't magical himself, and it's not yet a super big part of the plot. The way that the plot's shaking up, it looks like it's going to be about this disgraced, banished noblewoman maybe making a ploy for the throne, and our guardsman Thomas getting caught up in it. I'm not loving it though. I feel like I don't understand our character of Thomas. He definitely has pride in his work, but I don't really understand what's driving him. But we'll see how that one shakes out. If there's one thing that Martha Wells can write well, it's her characters. So I'm expecting Thomas to get more developed as we go on, but there's a little doubt in my heart that says that this series was written a really long time ago and maybe she's improved a lot as an author through the years, and this is the before. So I finished Territory, and it did get better in the second half. I think a lot of that was just because of our characters getting more active in general, and also all of these little puzzle pieces started coming together. Like the romance between Jessie and Mildred kept going. Jessie also ends up fostering this little orphan Chinese boy, and I am just a sucker for cute, intelligent, competent kids. I love children in real life and in my fiction, and she was such a great character. But anyway, my thoughts. I was really liking this book. I was especially liking how things kept like heating up in this city of Tombstone, in the politics, that things kept happening that would make different groups really mad at each other. Like this person's father died, or this person got attacked, or you discover that the person you thought you knew, it turns out to be an evil wizard. And the stakes just kept getting higher and higher. And then the book ended. Just like that. No, we did not get the Western-style showdown that this book has been gearing up to. The historical event that so many movies and American legends have been based on. No, we did not get a satisfying conclusion of the romance between Jessie and Mildred. Like, it didn't burst into flames in the end, but also, it didn't happen. I got to the end of this book, and I was like, where is the rest of it? Surely my copy must be missing several more chapters. Like, this can't be how it ends before the action, before these plot lines get resolved. And it just does. So in the end, I feel like 4 stars to this book because I did love every moment of reading this book, but the ending feels like 3-star, 2-star kind of thing. This book feels like it's a part 1. And I guess part 2 would be what really happened in Tombstone, or all of the Western movies about the shootout at the OK Corral. I don't want to watch a Western movie. I actually did for a little bit consider like, oh, maybe I should go watch one of these movies about Tombstone, about Wyatt Earp and his friends. And then I started looking into it, and my choices were like a Western made 30 years ago, a Western made 60 years ago, a Western made 90 years ago, and there were like 15 of them based off these events, and I just didn't care enough to pursue any of those. Most of the time when I give a book 4 stars, I'm happy about it. I love the books that I give 4 stars. And 4 stars is above my average. On average, I give books 3.4. So like, it's a happy conclusion. But I wanted so dearly for this particular book to be 5 stars that 4 stars feels like an angry rating. I am angry at this book for not being better. And if it had just had like a few more chapters to actually wrap up all of these plot lines, it could have. So would I read more from this author, Emma Bull? I've read all of her books now and reread all of her books now. And if she ever chose to publish something new, I would read it in a heartbeat. I'm halfway through The Element of Fire, and I have figured out what was up with that acting troupe thing. The exiled half-fae princess was in that acting troupe in order to sneak in to the city and confront her brother, the king. One of the things that I'm very pleasantly surprised by with this book is that there's a romance, or at least the beginnings of one, that I wouldn't be that surprised if it didn't actually happen for a few books. But we've got 2 narrators, Thomas, our captain of the guard, and 𝐂𝐀𝐏, the exiled princess. And they've definitely had a few moments where they're looking at each other across the room and both thinking that the other one is hot. We love to see it. I'm excited for them to become a power couple. But it is a very slow-moving romance, because that and some emotional heart-to-hearts are all we've gotten out of it. And I don't think we're gonna get a resolution to it in this book. Maybe in the sequel. But this book, it's just like, okay. Like, I'm feeling 3 stars about it. It's so slow and feels low stakes in a boring way. Like at the beginning of the book, we had the conflict for Thomas of people might be trying to get him, there's all these political things happening. But then where did that go? Did he do anything about it? No. And then for 𝐂𝐀, we had the challenge of her trying to sneak into the city and not get killed on sight. And now, what is she doing in the castle? Just doing nothing. And then the castle got attacked and we got some great scenes of defending the castle with magic and swords and pistols. And they're just kind of stumbling from one disaster to another and occasionally referencing their feelings. But I'm not feeling it, you know? It's certainly good enough to continue, to keep reading. I'm not feeling very hopeful that this will be our 5-star. I mean, it'd be nice if it was. If the ending is fantastic, then I am fully willing to give it that rating, but I've just finished The Element of Fire and I am ready to talk to you about it. I think we're gonna do it while I cut up some nice apple slices. So The Element of Fire was a just good novel, but it never came to great. Like, for example, you know the romance that was just starting up last time I checked in, and I was a little unsure of if it was going to pan out in this book or if we were going to have to wait for a future book? Well, it did pan out in this book, but in the most underwhelming way. It was like we just went from the level of pining and crushing from across the room, but not really taking anything seriously, to spending a little bit of time together, to suddenly, we are a couple, let's run away together. And there was just no romance in the romance. You know, no pursuit or proper drama to it. And I feel like a lot of the end of this book felt like it just happened, and there wasn't the emotional base to make it really mean something or to have it have stakes. Like, for example, there's a villain in this book. Surprise! And throughout the book, our characters are trying to kill this villain. And then nearing the end of the book, this villain is still alive. So our main character, Thomas, challenges him to a sword duel. And then his friend is like, dude, why don't you just like shoot him? Why don't you just assassinate him? Like, why are you bothering with this duel of honor? And then our main character, Thomas, is like, it has to be this way. I care about this. But I'm like, no you don't. I just read an entire book of you just killing people. You literally shot this other guy, like, in the back just a few chapters ago. Like, what do you mean you care so much about your honor and you have to challenge this man to a duel? I have not seen you caring about your honor once in this book. In another book, if they had laid the groundwork for this character of caring about his honor and caring about the ritual of a duel, then I could believe it. But for this, it just felt like cheap drama, where we were supposed to care about his honor fighting to the death in this duel, and we were never actually given the emotional foundation to do so. We were supposed to care about these characters ending up together, and even though I do think that they make a good couple, even though I do ship them, I don't care, because there were no stakes to it. The characters weren't at risk of losing each other or something else because they got together. They just did. So, like, the entire book was overall okay. I want to give it 3 stars. I was definitely entertained, and I'm glad that I read it. I think I'm even going to give the sequel a try and hope that I like it better. I think the sequel is actually following different characters in the same world. And I want to give this author the benefit of the doubt because I know she can write better stories. And so the total stars is 11. Just one shy of the goal of 12. And honestly, I went back and forth on this goal for a while. Because once I saw that we had 11 out of 12, I started thinking, maybe I should just change the goal to be 11 so that the video can end on a happy note. But no, we are keeping high standards for this project. The books will have to meet me. I will not stoop to meet the books. We will just have to try again next time to find even awesomer books that can meet the 12-star goal. And I already have them picked out. Tune in on a future Frizzle Friday for the next installment of me reading from authors I've given 5 stars to before. And we'll see if those books can meet my expectations. And an extra thank you goes to my patrons. We have such awesome perks like a monthly book club on Discord, early access to the videos, bonus videos, merch, book recommendations. Thank you.